Welcome back to Better Pet Parents, everybody. Thank you for being here. So, today we're going to talk about telling lies. We all know that when we go to the doctor's office and our doctor asks us questions about our habits, that sometimes we fudge the truth about those habits. Our doctors might ask us what kind of foods we're eating, if we're consuming a lot of sugar, if we're getting enough exercise, if we ever smoke or drink. And sometimes we don't always tell the truth about those things, the same way that we don't always tell the truth to the dental hygienist who asks us if we floss every day. And at the end of the day, the people asking those questions likely know whether or not we're telling the truth. But also, the only person who suffers if we're not telling the truth is us. We know that if we tell our cardiologist that we're working diligently to get our cholesterol down, but then we leave their office and go and eat a hamburger at the fast food restaurant, that the only person that's going to suffer from that decision is us. Our doctors can only help us to the degree that we're telling them the truth. If they don't know all the details, then they can't help us. And the same is true for our veterinarians. So this week, I just want to plant this thought in everybody's mind to be truthful at the veterinary office, because when our veterinarian asks us things like, is your pet getting enough exercise? What kind of foods are you feeding your pet? How often are you giving your pet food? And are you ever giving your pet table scraps? And we don't tell the truth about those things. The only one who's going to suffer is the animal. The difference between the two situations, though, is that the animal doesn't understand that the decisions that are being made for them are necessarily bad ones, the way that we understand when we actively make bad decisions about our own health. So I would just encourage everybody to always tell the truth at the veterinary office, because the veterinarian can only help us as much as the information that we're giving them. If they don't know all the details, then they can't help us. And when you are honest at the veterinary office, then your veterinarian can help you figure out and educate you on the better way to do things. I'll give an example. So when my dog became diabetic, that was a very, very tough pill for me to swallow. I was really struggling with feeling like I could no longer give him treats and that I could no longer spoil him the way that I loved spoiling him. And I would go in and I would say to my vet, can I really not give him any of this stuff anymore? I feel like I'm punishing him for something and this is just terrible. And they were able to educate me on suitable replacements for those habits so that I didn't feel like I was doing something wrong, but also so that my dog wasn't suffering. Because if I had not been willing to have those conversations and I had instead just continued the bad habits, the only one who would have suffered would have been my dog. But instead, we were able to talk about it and figure out the suitable replacements so that my dog could still have quality of life, and so that the insulin doses made sense in his particular case. So I would just say that when you're at the exam room, make sure you're being truthful, because if you're not, then the veterinarian doesn't have all the data necessary to make the right decisions appropriate for the medication doses and things like that. If you're dealing with a situation where you're just dealing with a standard case of obesity, then your doctor likely knows whether or not you're telling the truth about your pet's food habits. But the only way to get the situation better is to be willing to talk with them about it. I encourage everybody to make sure that you have a veterinarian that you like, so you feel like you can take the time that you need to take at those veterinary appointments to learn from them, to discuss with them. As somebody who has worked professionally with animals for many years, I've heard a lot of veterinarians and a lot of vet techs tell a lot of stories over the years about things that clients have said in the exam room. And you get stories like the ones where the vets will say, well, I know that person wasn't telling the truth about what they're doing at home. Then you get the situations where somebody always blames it on the spouse. They say, well, the reason that they're overweight is because my husband will not stop feeding the dog biscuits and gravy behind my back. It's somebody else's fault. And then you get situations where people are perfectly truthful about it, but just are doing something crazy. I worked with a veterinarian one time who told me that a client came in and said that she gave her dog a snack-sized candy bar every night at bedtime. And so obviously the vet had to tell her that we do not need to be doing that. And I mean, hey, you gotta hand it to her for telling the truth. But I'm just saying, making sure that we're being honest with our veterinarians is such an important part of our pet's welfare, because the decisions being made for them are not their decisions, they're our decisions. And when there's bad decisions being made, they're the only ones who are going to suffer for it. So please keep this topic at the forefront of your mind this week. Give this some thought. Think about how you can be more truthful with your vet so that your pet can have the most quality of life that they can have, so that you can learn the best way to do things. Our vets know that part of the pleasure of having a pet is wanting to spoil them, and being willing to talk with them about it so that you can learn the best way to do that is just doing your animal a favor. So I encourage each and every one of you to keep this topic in mind. Make sure that when you're going to the vet and you're spending money on your office visit, that you're getting the most out of that. Because what's the point in spending money on an office visit where you're telling something less than the truth? Because then whatever diagnosis is made or whatever treatment recommendations are made are not going to be fully effective if that's not really what's going on at home. The veterinarian can only do as good of a job as the information that they're being given about the case. So I just encourage everybody to keep this in mind. Do better with not telling fibs at the vet. Chances are your vet knows anyway if you are fibbing, but you owe it to your animal to be as truthful as possible. So let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks for being here.